The creep who was stalking me for 6 months went through with his promise to break into my house, but what he didn't know is that I made a promise to myself to survive, and I have been training for this since he contacted me. For the past 6 months I have been relentlessly stalked and had threats against my life made from someone I dated for a month. It started with phone calls upwards of 45 to 50 a day, 50-page text messages, and him showing up outside of my house at 5 a.m. When I would not comply or feed the negative attention, I began to receive threats, claims that he would unalive me and get away with it. All he would have to do is flee the country. Telling me he shouldn't have to force me to be his friend or give him another chance or else. Every time I blocked his number from contacting me, he would then call me from different ones, try and pretend to be other people or have his friends or sometimes even random strangers he'd ask on the street. I once scared an unsuspecting guy half to death after informing him that the person who had just told him to call me was actually stalking me, and I sent him proof. He ended up calling the police on him. He fled, of course. After about 2 months of that, I was evicted from my apartment building due to my neighbors no longer feeling safe because of his looming presence. I then applied for and was granted a TPO. A few days afterwards I received a picture message of the note the sheriff civil had left on the door of my stalker's then residence with a message taunting me that what you are trying to do was stupid and a restraining order is just a piece of paper. So ultimately he just ended up avoiding the process server, and simple as that. I was not being protected at all. May 31st of this year I relocated. This did not deter my stalker. He vowed to find wherever I moved to and threatened that if he couldn't find me he would be able to find my family, and then proceeded to send me a map of my mother's home whom he had never met. I received a message from a woman claiming to be my former landlord, letting me know that I owed a balance on my account and to avoid late fees I needed to pay the amount, which I could do with the link provided in the message. Turns out it was my stalker pretending to be a woman, and the link turned out to be a tool used to grab the user's IP address when they clicked the link. Upon this discovery I changed my phone number and began to systematically dismantle any trace of an online presence I once had. This action only seemed to anger him, and before deleting the profiles outright I would attempt to block him from contacting me. Each and every time I blocked one he simply created a new one and proceeded to contact me as if nothing had happened. 12 different Reddit accounts, 9 different Tumblrs, 10 different Instagrams, 3 Meetup accounts, 4 Facebooks, with which he changed his location to that of my hometown and proceeded to add nearly everyone from my graduating class in high school, and even 3 Duolingo accounts in MySpace. Yes. MySpace. I then received an empty package from him addressed to my former residence with the declaration, address correction requested, do not forward. I'm assuming he thought that the post office would adhere to his requests and return the package to him with my new corrected address on it. Mid-July he created a profile using my photos and likeness to threaten my family. When I didn't respond he proceeded to post semi-nude pictures of me on the profile in an attempt to blackmail me into speaking with him. I did not and contacted Twitter to report the account and have it removed, which they eventually did. On August 21, 2014. I awoke around 8 p.m. to vigorous knocking and ringing of my doorbell. I look out my window to see who it is, and I was horrified to see my stalker there. I called the police and of course he fled once again. Over 7 separate police reports filed. This incident was followed by threatening emails from my stalker demanding that I meet him somewhere, or because he had found me that next time I would wake up to gunshots, and that if I didn't he would first taser you and SA you in the butt using your boyfriend's blood as lube. This past Sunday night I woke up at 6:45 a.m. to the ringing and banging again. I proceeded to record him on video while I was on the phone with the police. He fled on foot once again and I was hit with the same hoopla from law enforcement. Well, we can't really do much because technically at this point he's not doing anything wrong. Then why does he flee, I wonder? I obtained a TPO again, but I have no solid address for this dangerous person. Which is why I am in dire need of a private investigator to assist with finding said residence so this person can be served. I hope you might be able to refer me to someone who might be able to assist me. I've developed insomnia, depression, anxiety, and paranoia. I'm completely isolated. I am 22 years old and I have no social life anymore. I have 0 friends. I've become a shell of my former self. I've faced eviction and lost a job because of this man's behavior, and I don't know how much longer I can survive. There's actually so much more filler shit that he has done to terrorize me, but for the sake of this already lengthy post I try to condense it. I have proof in the form of recordings, event diaries, and copies of all of his threats, interactions, and attempts to communicate, and would be more than willing to email them to show I'm not lying. I am an LV if that helps at all. Update. I'm writing this staring at the mess the police left for me, in a bit of a fog. After 6 months of stalking and threats against my life, my stalker finally snapped and decided to kick my door in and make good on his promise. Out of fear, the past month I had begun sleeping with a chair propped against my front door, to give myself a few extra precious seconds in case of emergency. I shudder to think how differently things might have turned out had I not barricaded the door. I awoke around 1:15 a.m. to the sound of the door giving way after one kick, followed by the sounds of my stalker struggling to dislodge the chair while forcing his way inside. I jumped up and grabbed the gun I've learned to do everything, even shower with. I stood at the top of my stairs and fired twice. Hitting him in the chest, I hear his scream, his disbelief that I'd stood up for myself. 0 to 100 in milliseconds. I've never been so afraid in my life. I do not know if he is living, but I do know the police have him, and that's what helps the most. For months of him evading the police, I began to question whether he was unstoppable. Untraceable. Houdini, he would die me and get away with it. As of now, I'm in a haze of guilt, surprise, relief, and disbelief. I shook as the canines dragged him out from his hiding place under a bush. I survived, where so many people do not. Holy, I survived. The outpouring of support is wild. I can't thank you guys enough. Everyone can be a critic, and the fact still remains, you don't know what you will do in a situation until it's presented in front of you. Those who believe there was other things to be done have never had someone tell you that you no longer deserve to draw breath and mean it. And for the should have fired a warning shot folks, there are no warning shots. A gun is a deadly force, you only pull that trigger if you are in fear for your life, and all other methods of deterring are gone. When he kicked my door in, there was no longer a deterrent preventing harm. Warning shots are dangerous and could hurt the unintended. This is not a Wild West movie. That's what responsible gun ownership is. I'll write back to everyone after being isolated for so long, anyone who wants to be friends, I'm always accepting those.